Now, I would like to invite Yvonne to present about another case and another experience of dementia. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm speaking on behalf of a lady called Irene. She's not actually a patient here, but I have met Irene through different things that we've been running, and we were able to sympathise with each other because I've looked after parents. I have both parents who were suffering from dementia of my husband, so I looked after those, and then later on when my mother started with early dementia. So I'm just going to read you what she has to say. And this is from a patient's wife perspective. Looking back over the time my husband has had Alzheimer's, I wonder how I managed to cope, especially in the early days of the disease. I knew for certain there was definitely something wrong, but exactly what it was, I wasn't too sure. I'd spoken with my husband's GP, in the presence of my husband, about the signs and symptoms my husband was displaying. Sadly, the GP only saw a man who 2 years previously had undergone a triple heart bypass and who was now rather forgetful. Needless to say, I wasn't at all happy with this diagnosis, but unfortunately I was able to convince the GP that this was more than forgetfulness. Things became much worse and my husband became not only forgetful, but paranoid, agitated, aggressive and menacing his behaviour. Once again I consulted his GP, who thought that most people became forgetful as they got older, and obviously this could cause frustration for the patient. I asked for my husband to be referred to the hospital. The GP thought this was unnecessary. A couple of weeks later, and following constant appointments at the surgery, the situation became even worse. My husband became violent, and it was necessary for me to leave the house at 4 o'clock in the morning in my nightwear to hide behind a neighbour's caravan. Around 6 o'clock I managed to get back into the house as he had calmed down and was asleep on the sofa. I was as quiet as I could be, but being disabled myself, it wasn't quite enough. My husband woke up and started where he left off. I managed to keep the situation as low-key as possible, but in the end, I had no alternative but to leave our home again. This time I was distraught to see the man I love, who had always shown me nothing but love and kindness, change into some kind of abusive and violent monster. I've never been so frightened in my life. Whilst I was walking towards the main road, trying to decide what to do next, a couple of friends pulled up in their car and took me to my husband's surgery. The GP refused to see me without an appointment, despite the receptionist telling him why I was there. The waiting room was full of patients, and there was I left with no alternative but to speak about what I had gone through in front of an audience. In the end, after a great deal of argument with the practice manager, but with the support of the patients in the waiting room, my friend and I staged a sit-in. And if you know Irene, you know how this is so out of character. I can't believe I'm reading it. Eventually, I was seen by a locum doctor. The locum doctor had read through my husband's file, so that he was aware of prior visits. When he heard what I had gone through, his only comment was that this type of behaviour is sometimes to be expected with dementia. To say I was shocked and appalled is an understatement. This is the first time either my husband or I had been told that he had dementia. It would appear that 2 years or so prior to seeing the locum doctor, the consultant whose care my husband was under regarding his heart problem had advised the GP to refer my husband to the vascular studies unit at our local hospital. This was not done. Instead, the GP referred him for an ECG. I left the surgery in a daze, without a prescription, but with a promise that the GP would phone my husband later to see if he would make an appointment to come and see him. When the phone call was received, my husband had calmed down and more like his normal self. However, I was unable to get him to agree to an evening appointment with the GP. When we went back to the surgery, instead of seeing the GP, we saw the locum again, who gave me a prescription for medication to calm my husband, and assured me that he would refer him to a psychiatrist at the hospital. I'm not speaking out to condemn the GP, I did that years ago when I changed surgeries, but to encourage others to listen and to act what those close to the patients have to say. Please do not ignore us. In my opinion, it is the patient who has the disease, but it is those that they love who suffer from it.